Yeah, sometimes you just have to check your settings. Sometimes you have to check your audio settings, like on your computer screen and stuff. Welcome. Been a couple of days since the last check-in, check-up, check-on, check-out. I got to grab my phone because I need to see how many minutes of breath hold that I did this morning. It's been a great day. I hope it's been a great day for you. How was your day? While you're pressing that like button, go ahead and scroll down and hit a comment and tell me how your day was. How was your day? I hope it was good. This is the Wim Hof app. It's a really cool app. I think I pay like $6 a month or something, $5 or $6 a month for it. It's got all kinds of little exercises and stuff. I use it for the breathing. It's got a guided breathing tool on here. You can set your little settings here onto different stuff. Faster breathing, slower breathing, super fast breathing, so on and so forth. And then when you start it,
breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Just go with the flow of the breath.
That's great. And then he'll tell you, hold your breath. And then you hold your breath as long as you can.
Take a deep breath.
And then you go into a recovery breath for 15 seconds. And that's your round.
Let your breathing return to normal. You finish up the round.
Thank you, Wim. Yeah, the guy's amazing. The Iceman, Wim Hof. Sometimes you miss days. Sometimes you miss. I have like a week here that I missed. July. It was the 4th of July week. So the 2nd through the 9th, 7 whole days I missed in there. And, 4th of July. Got to do what you got to do, man. If I'm feeling real frisky, I'll do like 5 rounds. You get a funny feeling sometimes when you do 5 rounds. What is it? I did a nice 20-minute meditation this morning. I've done meditations the last few days. Getting back into that is, you got to try it. It's pretty epic. It's good stuff. 245.4. Still sitting right around that same point. If I can break down to the 240 marker by this time next week, let's give it 10 days. Say by the 25th. By the 25th, I'm going to need to hit 240 or below. So 245.4 starting today. I did a 3-minute ice bath. God, I really did not want to do the ice bath this morning. It was the most suffering ice bath that I've done yet. I've kind of looked forward to them, and it's kind of like it's a cool new thing. And it was early. I'm kind of warm still from basically getting out of bed and meditate for a while, and so that kind of warms your body up too. And then I got into the ice bath, and I was like, 64 degrees, colder than the old San Marcos River. So I'm going to talk a little bit about accountability and authenticity today. Accountability, there's this guy, Naval Ravikant, who's an angel investor. He's got a company called Angel List. He's invested in Uber. He was a venture capitalist, just a really intelligent guy, and he's got a really cool perspective on a lot of things. This is a great book that you can kind of scroll through, and pick some different pieces and parts out of. And he's got it broken up into wealth, building judgment, learning happiness, saving yourself, and philosophy. So it's a book on wealth and happiness. Pretty cool little one that to pick up for the collection. We've got a piece in here about accountability because he starts the chapter, says intentions don't matter, actions do. Embrace accountability and take business risks under your own name. Society will reward you with responsibility, equity, and leverage. He has a really astute perspective on monetary systems, leverage, like this responsibility and accountability. So to get rich, you need leverage. Leverage comes in labor, capital, or it can come through code or media. But most of these, like labor and capital, people have to give them to you. For labor, somebody has to follow you. For capital, somebody has to give you money, assets to manage, or machines. So to get these things, you have to build credibility. And you have to do it under your own name as much as possible, which is risky. So accountability is a double-edged thing. It allows you to take credit when things go well and bear the brunt of the failure when things go badly. Clear accountability is important. Without accountability, you don't have incentives. And without accountability, you can't build credibility. But you take risks. You risk failure, you risk humiliation, you risk failure under your own name. The people who have the ability to fail in public under their own names actually gain a lot of power. People generally will forgive failures as long as you were honest and made a high integrity effort. In this day and age. In the old days, the captain was expected to go down with the ship. The ship was sinking. Literally the last person to get off was the captain. And so that is a real consequence of accountability, a real risk. But we're talking about a business context. So also talking about a business context, I have some financial issues that I'm working through and trying to reassess and restructure. So I wasn't responsibly managing my labor hours for capital exchange. And I misappropriated some of that capital that I had gained by exchanging hours for it. So now in getting back to figure that out, I have a mentor who's helping me out, and I was not being fully accountable with him for the first week or so. And then I got to where I realized that, that nothing's going to happen. And I think this applies way more than just finance. Nothing's going to happen until you're accountable with yourself. And we can look at yourself and say, hey, this is the problem that I'm looking at. It's easier said than done. So you can listen to this and then look at yourself in the mirror and try to apply it. And it's not as easy as it is. It's not as easy to do as it is to say. So, but I somehow, was blessed, thank God, to reach a point today where I just said, man, I got to bite the bullet and just come clean and make sure everything's transparent, because otherwise I'm not going to have a clear sight picture of what's actually going on in the entirety of my net worth, right? So you can't see what's going on in the room. If the lights are off in the room, kind of entropy happens. And then if the lights are on in the room and there's transparency and there's clarity and there's actual accountability, then you can actually start to clean up the mess that entropy has created over that time. So, there's a big value in accountability publicly, but there's also a big value in accountability privately, so that you can actually be accountable to yourself. And that's why I do the accountability chart. So I started just now this episode with the accountability chart because I'm being accountable. I don't always do my breathing. I don't always go to the gym. That system, I started writing it all down on a chart, and I would tape that chart to my notebook that I use every day. I had like a big notebook with a clipboard in it, and I would use that, and I'd take it with me everywhere in the kitchen and after the kitchen and everything. So I would throw that in my gym bag or whatever, and I would always have it with me. So in the morning I could get up and I could write down my weight. I could write down, how many gallons of water did I drink that day, and so on and so forth. So accountability has been very useful as a tool, as long as you use it. As long as you use it. It's like any tool is only as good as your ability to use that tool. If you're going to try to, have a firearm to protect yourself, for example, and you've never practiced using it, you're going to get in a situation where you have to draw it and you're going to shoot yourself in the leg like Cheddar Bob, right? So you got to practice and have accountability and be honest with yourself. And then you got to be honest publicly and have accountability publicly in order to gain that access to that leverage, access to that, whether it's capital, whether it's labor, or whether it's code or media, which is accountability. And then authenticity. This thing right here, this don't hold your breath thing, is just me talking. Some of it is me being silly and acting like Lavernius Jackson and reading out of the book of the Subgenius and talking about psychological warfare and stuff and things that I encounter in the day. But at the core of all that is authenticity. Because some days I'm silly, some days I'm serious, and some days I have a lot, today, the energy today was a lot of breakthroughs, a lot of insight, a lot of theoretical movement. What would you call that? Like kinetic, potential energy in the planning phases. And if we execute on all that stuff, then there's a lot of upside on the other side of that equation. So if 1 + 1 is 2 and you can break through to doing things that you don't want to do, then on the other side is greatness, right? Thank you, Akira, once again. Actually, somebody told me today that he's talking about today is day 1, Boat Crew 2. You can't fuck with Boat Crew 2. You can't get in our heads. And he said, today's day 1. And it never snapped. It never registered to me that he's talking about his whole thing when he's there in that moment at Buzz Training is like, today's day 1. You can't mess with me because it's day 1. I'm fresh. I'm not tired. You can't beat me up. You can't, And so I don't know. It never really registered there that message was there, but it's a good message. So whenever you're feeling like everything's kind of coming down on you and everything is, or everything's getting repetitive and boring, or everything's getting mundane and you can't make it, to get up and do it again, every day is day 1. Every day is start from scratch day. So that's a good insight that I got today from a great teacher. So authenticity, this is another one that, I'm kind of doing all these side by side because my massive ADD factory, my ADD factory factors in. So he says, if you desire to be an effective leader who takes the high road, you must embrace authenticity. You can't hide. You can't pretend to be something you're not. You can't try to trick people into believing you're a better person or a leader than you really are. You must be yourself with them, being open about your flaws and shortcomings as well as your strengths. I admit that can feel scary. Once, when I was speaking to a group of C-suite leaders, encouraging them to be open with their teams about their weaknesses, an attendee spoke to me afterward and challenged my thinking. He said that he believed a leader should never show weakness to employees. And so the response was, you're working under a misconception. I explained, you think that your people don't already know your weaknesses and flaws. The purpose of admitting them isn't to give them new information. It's to let them know that you know what they are. So I think that's a very powerful statement. I think that showing that vulnerability and being able to show a little bit of humanness and show your team that you came from somewhere too, and that the capacity to grow exists, like there's a potential there, can inspire people in the right setting. So then he tells a story about Jamie Kern Lima. And so she had a company, a makeup company that she sold to L'Oreal for $1.2 billion. She took 8 years to build the company from her living room in 2008, sold it in 2016 for $1.2 billion. That's a hell of a story. Great success story. So she was on QVC at one point, and she had grown up kind of with a lot of negative feelings about her appearance, and then she got rosacea on her face and was really embarrassed and covered her face with makeup and had a lot of trouble with the makeup not being good quality and cracking and kind of making her look older. And but she broke through. She was determined to use herself and other women with flaws to display her products instead of beautiful models with perfect skin. She said, in a moment on QVC, I took the plunge and went from being a girl who wouldn't leave the house without covering her face with layers of makeup to a girl who showed her naked, rosacea-filled, bright red face on national television. And that was the turning point for her business. And so sharing our true, flawed, authentic selves is the only way real connection and love can happen. It's the only way to step into our full power and purpose for our lives. I mean, I think that there's just a lot of truth in that. And it applies, again, just like the accountability factor, it applies in public and it applies in private as well. Like it applies externally and it applies internally. So if you're doing internal work and trying to mold and shape yourself into the person that you know you can be and that you maybe haven't been in the past, then you have to do that. You have to be authentic with yourself as well as accountable to yourself, right? So there's an interesting line there between authenticity and accountability. And I think you can't be authentic without having that accountability first, right? You have to actually face it and say, hey, look, this is the truth. And then you can share that truth. And then you can start to be authentic and you can share it with yourself and you can also share it externally outside yourself. So that was my insight for today. It's just kind of quick check-in. We'll get some more content lined up for you guys as the days go by. It's a great experiment. It's been so far a whole lot of fun. This will be episode number 19 of the Don't Hold Your Breath podcast. This Sunday we'll be recording potentially another episode. We may be just recording some shorts and some little stuff to share as we sort of build up our stores of footage for the Burnt Biscuit Gang podcast. I'll tell you what, the episode on last Sunday, I'm starting to become proud of, right? Like it's starting to get to a point where, okay, this is something we can actually present, and this is something we can actually start to see the formation of an actual podcast coming together here, which is pretty cool. I'm really proud of Jonathan's growth and taking the wheel and figuring out his vision of what that podcast is going to look like. And, that originally was his vision anyhow. So I'm really glad that we were able to so far bring it to some fruition. I can't wait to get Will more involved and everyone on the crew kind of coming together to share that vision and see how it comes together. So it's an exciting thing. And we will see y'all the next time we see you. Ciao, ciao. All right, so while this is downloading, I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to CapCut and say this, because I did an update and it's horrible. Like, they ruined it. And then they put some really basic stuff on the paid subscription. So I guess they just need money or something. Yeah. I'm downloading a new editing software because they're acting like dickwads. So CapCut, suck it.